Greetings! It is I, Tantus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire. Welcome! It is time to continue our discussion on Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, AD&D. We were talking about being a game master and details as a game master as they relate to your players. Information that relates to what they need to know, hinting on what you need to know. Sort of the connection between things that your players may or may not do or need and you. So, let's break down, we were talking about experience just a little bit. Let's dive farther into it. Now, there are a certain number of goals that you're going to want in every session, and you're going to want to think about experience along the lines of these goals. Keeping to these goals helps you think about what you will reward your players for. The first one is to have fun. Now, when we're talking about fun, there's a number of questions that you're going to ask about how you think your players did in the course of the game. First off, were they interacting with everything? Did they make sure it was fun for the other players? Did they do things that made it fun for them? Did they do nothing to interfere or distract the game? And they were not argumentative or rules lawyer. If you're going to answer that they were in the right in that one, if they were being interactive, if they were helping other people have fun, if they were not doing the last two, then your character is being fun, it is having fun, and that's an important thing that you're going to want to note when you're thinking about experience. Then we're going to say, did they survive? That's an important one. When they faced against these challenges, that the challenges were unnecessarily threatening, did they survive it and get intact and continue on afterwards? It's the fact that whatever challenge they faced, it had to have been an actual challenge, and it was survivable by them, so they feel like they accomplished something. And that is where the last one of these that are the important top of the line, you're always going to have goals, comes in. Did they improve themselves? Did they learn something from the various puzzles and challenges they met that makes their character feel like it improved and got better? You're going to want to look to all of these when we're beginning to break down what kind of experience you give. Now, the next thing is the more optional things. Now, the only optional thing you're really going to think about is story-based experience. When something in the story happens, when they accomplish a major goal, succeed on some kind of quest, giving them some kind of experience reward to reflect that. This becomes more optional. You don't necessarily need to do it, but you should always think about doing it because it does reflect that they have accomplished something in their goals. Now, there is two types of experience you're going to reward. Group experience and individual experience. Group experience is divided in amongst everyone, while individual experience is only given to the player that earns it, and is indeed optional again. Now, there are a couple of types of group awarded EXP. First is for defeating or monsters. This isn't necessarily killing them. This could be routing them, this could be capturing them, forcing them to surrender. Whatever sort of defeat you would have to whatever sort of creatures you're fighting will get you that. Now, there is some charts in the book that gives you an idea of how much experience is for whatever challenge it is. If the creature would be in such a position that it wasn't a difficulty thing to fight, or it was not challenging whatsoever, then experience is not going to be rewarded for it. It should have been a challenging fight that there was the possibility of the characters being defeated there. Granted, there could be circumstances, let's say if you're very high-level characters fighting a very weak thing, you're not going to get experience for it. Or if you somehow come up with this amazing plan that defeats a creature right away, quickly and efficiently, without any kind of threat to you, then it is the DM's prerogative not to award you experience for this because you managed to defeat it without any trouble. You had no challenge. And the idea of experience is to have a level of challenge. Now, there is also the possibility of completing some kind of task or quest that you would get experience for that too. As I said, when you're awarding experience for that, you should make sure that it's not more than the amount of experience that you're awarding for the monsters, and you really should keep it to, at most, 1/10 of the experience needed to attain the next level, the next average level that the characters would need. So effectively, you want to keep that level of experience down, the awards for quests. Monster experiences are going to be far more important. You can, of course, also give experience for survival. If some kind of danger that seemed like very unlikely for the characters to prevail against, that they did, that they met some kind of challenge, whether intentionally you set it up for them to face it, or they accidentally got themselves into a situation and managed to get themselves out of it, you can award them experience for that. When you'll do is you'll add up all the experience for all of these different things in the course of the session. You'll then divide it evenly among all the surviving players. You should do this as soon as possible, because if you wait a few weeks before assigning experience, some of these things that were accomplished you might start to forget about, and it might be more difficult. Now, I mentioned surviving players because if a character died and hadn't been resurrected by the end of the session, they don't get the same amount of experience as everyone else. Now, granted, they could have earned some experience before they passed away, and if the players are planning on resurrecting them, it might be important to note this and keep track of how much experience they would have actually gotten. Also, it's up to you how you want to handle that, especially if the character is possibly going to be coming back. Now, there are two groups of individual experience. There's the stuff that is open to all characters if you're using this optional system, so that any character may earn this, usually for some kind of good role-playing or actions they do in-game which reflects good advancement of storyline and plot. And there's also then character-based individual experience, which is based upon classes, that you would look to the classes that they have and see if they've accomplished any of the tasks. There are 2 charts in the book, one for each of these, and then they would get some of their reward. These are the especially daunting ones if you don't do them ahead of time, because then you get into that trouble of not remembering things. Remembering all the monsters they killed is a lot easier than remembering if they accomplished anything in these tasks. Now, you're going to have to determine how quickly you want your players to level. There's a couple of factors as this: how much you're rewarding them, how much and how often you're rewarding them. Now, the thing is, no matter what they're doing, no matter how much experience they've earned by killing monsters, they will never advance more than 1 level per session they have. Never more than that. That is the maximum that could ever possibly be done. If they would possibly have earned more than 1 level, then they are positioned between the level they just gained and halfway up to the next level, and that is where their experience caps out at. So if I say I got to level 2 and I had enough experience to get to level 3, I'm halfway in between level 2 and level 3. That's where I cap off. And any extra experience is lost and not gone anymore. It goes away. It doesn't have any effect. You can't get any more experience than that. And that is the maximum amount. That is one of those things. You're going to have to watch how quickly or how slowly you have your character's level. You're going to want it to be a balance, not only what you feel comfortable with and what you think is appropriate to the game, but what the characters are going to, what the players are going to want to feel like is appropriate. The book recommends that an average of 3 to 6 sort of session/adventures between each level is the average, though if you want a very fast game, you could make it 1 adventure per level, or up to 10 per level if you wanted to be very slow. That you sort of have these, quest lines in a story in a session, and each of these works towards a level. Again, it is completely up to you, and you could alternate it between them if you really feel like messing around with the formula. If you feel like certain times they might be doing slower based activities, other times they might be learning more and being quicker in their advancement. Anyway, that's it for today. I talked about, of course, experience. I went over all the weird details of it, figuring out what kind of goals you would have in a session, and look to those to figure out how much experience you're going to be giving characters, and what kind of threats they would be facing that would be giving them experience, what kind of awards they would giving them, and how to balance out the fact you don't want them to level too much or too little with the amount of experience you're giving them. It's all a unique balancing act that you're going to think about when you're designing your campaign world. If you have any questions, comments, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe to support for the channel, the Empire, and the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, please check out my Patreon, linked in the description below. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.